Hello, happy Friday. I hope you've all had a great week, and I am excited to share this risotto recipe with you guys today. So I've got the camera angled like this, so hopefully you can see a little bit about what's going on in the pan. The whole kind of method of making a risotto is very slow, very relaxed, really letting the flavors come out. So hopefully you'll have a little bit of an idea kind of what's going on in the pan. Make sure as we begin, you wash your hands, make sure you've got any rings and stuff taken off. So let's go and do that now. Awesome, so even if you've just washed them, it's good practice to keep on washing them and just making sure we are the utmost of cleanness. So what we're going to begin with is you want a nice big pan, so I've got the standard one that I have been using, and you want it on a kind of low to medium heat. It's just going to cook everything and get the flavours to come out nice and slowly. So starting off with, I'm just going to grab a couple of onions and some garlic as well. Typical me, the only things that I don't have ready. Awesome, so I've got 2 onions and some garlic as well. We're not going to use the whole entire bowl, but what we're going to do is make sure you've got all the outside skin out of the onion, nice and easy to peel. And we're going to cut again the top and the bottom off, and we're going to cut it nice and small just to increase the surface area, which is going to allow more of the flavors to come out in a shorter amount of time. I'm going to stop waving this massive knife around. Accidents happen. So we're going to cut our onions fairly small, making sure you keep your fingers well and truly out of the way. Awesome. So making sure if you've got any tough skin, so stuff that's a little bit harder to chop up, we just pop that out as well. It's not going to cook down so well. So while our pan is heating up, making sure we're getting a beautiful cut on our onions. Awesome, and then any of the hard skin, just putting it to one side as well. Awesome, so these are going to be one of the most amazing things just to add that extra flavour into our risotto as well. Take off that layer as well, we don't need that. Awesome. Getting them nice and cut up. Awesome. So these onions aren't too bad. I always find the white onions are the ones that make me cry the most. So we're okay. It's red onions in the risotto today, and they're just going to add a little bit more colour. And with the colour in your meals, it's going to help increase the content of phytonutrients, and so all the goodness that's going to come from your plants are going to be more concentrated when you're eating your darker colour veggies. So onions are going to go in the pan, and they're going to start sizzling away very soon. Just while we popped them in, making sure we get all of them in, we're going to add a little bit of oil and a little bit of butter. It's just going to add some cooking moisture for our veggies. So you want a couple of teaspoons of oil there, and we're going to do, so I've got a soup spoon, and I've just got spreadable butter, and then we're going to add in a spoonful of that as well. So butter has got a bit of a bad rep. I don't personally, in moderation, think there's anything wrong with it, but I'm sure some people have their own views. So long as you are okay with dairy, it is one of the only food sources that has butyric acid in, which your body uses in its detoxification. So it's anti-inflammatory production. So I don't personally think there's anything wrong with it, so long as you don't eat a whole block of butter on every single meal. So we're going to spread them around the pan a little bit. Like you say, everything in moderation. But it does help to bring the flavour out of our veggies as we're cooking them. Stirring them around, we're going to pop in the other onion. So again, skinning it with a risotto, you do want to just take your time going through cutting up all the veggies, adding them in nice and slowly so each of them can kind of soften in their own time. Making sure you get all the skin out of the way as well. Awesome. Ooh, spoon's falling in. We'll balance it. There we go, perfect. Awesome. So as soon as the onions start cooking with the oil and the butter, you should be able to smell it. An amazing smell just coming out of the pan now. Hopefully if you're cooking along with me, yours is starting to do the same thing. If not, give it some time. Maybe your pan's just taking a little bit longer to heat up. Awesome. So this is where we see that I'm really bad at peeling onions. Popping the next one. There we go. So again, taking the tops and the bottoms off the onions and getting them out of the way. So I like cutting them sideways first, and then cutting those sideways chunks into long strips, so you get essentially small little cubes. And then because an onion's in layers, you don't need to go and slice it top to bottom either. So sideways and then long ways is going to give you nice little cubes, and trying to hold the onion together so it doesn't run away from you. Out of all the veggies, it is not my favourite one to cut up. Awesome. So that should be just about there. And then we'll move on to the other half before we chuck them all in the pan. Beautiful. So my eyes are starting to sting. What I told you was obviously a lie. All onions make me cry. Goodness. Need a fan going on while I'm doing this. Okay, so we're almost done with the onions. Beautiful. So they are all nice and finely chopped, and we'll just pop them in to join the other onion in the pan. Beautiful. I'm going to try to stop myself from crying. So moving on to our garlic. We'll let them sizzle away just a little bit. We're going to pull off 2 cloves, and we're going to chop them nice and finely. So 1 and 2. So you've got your whole bulb of garlic, and you just want to take 2 segments out of it, just like that. And we're going to again peel them and pop them in, and they're going to help release their flavour as well. So I love starting any dish that I'm cooking with an onion or a couple of onions and some garlic as well. They're a great way to just start the flavour of any kind of dish. And also, they are packed full of goodness. They're strong smells. They're going to help keep away any vampires and keep away anybody who might want to kiss you as well if you're eating too much of them. Win-win. So, peeling garlic is a little bit easier to peel. Awesome. So when you can hear, I hope you can hear the pan, when you can hear it going, you do want to turn it down just to a little bit of a lower heat, so it is quite a low heat once it's heated up. Again, we're going to chop our garlic nice and finely. Best things about big knives, it makes it so much easier to cut things. Awesome. So when we've got our nice finely chopped garlic, make sure we don't miss any bits. That's going to go into the pan as well, joining our onions, which should be starting to soften quite nicely now. Making sure it all gets in the pan. Beautiful. Okay, so again, giving them a little stir. You always want to be stirring this as we're going through, breaking it all up, making sure that it all gets spread out along the bottom of the pan. Beautiful. So they're all starting to soften, smell beautiful. So I love cooking things in butter. It gets such a rich smell and a rich flavour coming off it. Okay, so next, as we're going to go for kind of spring, summer risotto, and we're going to add a lot of in-season veggies. So I know I popped asparagus on the list, but I did not manage to get any. It's not currently in season. I think it's a little bit early for it at the moment. So I'm going to substitute it with peas, but if you manage to get your hands on some asparagus, we're going to chuck that in at the end. We're going to start with our mushrooms. So again, cutting them up nice and finely. Awesome. And chucking them in the pan just as we go along. So again, we're going to cut up a couple of mushrooms, give it a stir. Cut up a couple of mushrooms, give it a stir. Gather them all together just so we can kind of cut them the same size. Awesome. So again, it's a really nice dish just if you've got a lot of time, either on a weekend or at the moment while we're on lockdown. It's just one of those nice relaxing dishes you can cook, hopefully nice and slowly. If you're still meal prepping, it's one of those things that you can cook on the weekend, and it will keep in the fridge in a Tupperware or a Pyrex dish or something for kind of 3 or 4 days. Make sure if you are putting it in the fridge that you let the rice cool completely, and just to avoid any kind of food poisoning. It is a vegetarian twist on a risotto, so we're not going to use any meats, and you can make it vegan if you're catering for a vegan diet by using a butter substitute, just depending on who you're cooking for, or what your dietary preferences are as well. Awesome. So while I don't knock that off, I popped 5 mushrooms in, and we're just going to mix them around again just so they can kind of soften in and cook with onions and garlic. We're going to pop in, I've got 1 pepper. Going with the theme, I know I've said I really like kind of mixing up the colours, but we're going for a very greenish theme today. We're going to balance out the colours by serving this with a red leaf salad. So we've got some really nice red leaf salad in the fridge, and we're just going to chop that up and serve it with our risotto as well. So it's nice and fresh, nice and summery. So popping our pepper, taking all the white bits out, we don't want to have them in. And again, we're going to cut it up nice and small. Making sure we don't have any white bits left on the knife would help as well. So popping our pepper again, nice and small pieces. Hopefully your onions, garlic and mushrooms are still sizzling away. So cutting them into strips and then cutting the strips into cubes. Again, just like we did with the onions and the mushrooms as well. Peppers are a little bit easier than onions. You're only working with 1 layer. Awesome. Chucking it all on the floor. Standard. But we'll pick it up in a second. So pepper in it goes, adding a little bit more green colouring. Of course, if you don't have a green pepper, you use orange, yellow, red, whichever your preference is. But make sure it's giving that quick stir as well. We're going to add in some spring onion and courgette as well, just making sure all of our veggies are in and softening down before we add the rice and the stock. So, love spring onions. They're such a good veggie. You can pop them in salads. They're amazing in sandwiches and cooking as well. A little bit more salad friendly, so not quite as intense flavour as your red and white onions. So they do add just a slightly different flavour. So you want to cut the roots off. And then you want to take off the outside layer in case it's got any dirt on it, and then cut in tiny little circles all the way up until the leaves start to split. So when you get to this little point here, you want to stop cutting there, so you've got most of the onion in the kind of fleshy bit of the onion, and we're going to use that in our cooking as opposed to the leafy bits, which are just a bit tough. Awesome. So we're going to add maybe 3 or 4 onions, spring onions as well, just to help bring out that flavour. So if you need to cut sideways down the onion just to get the outside layer just to peel off, by all means. There we go, perfect. Beautiful. That one, and we're just going to use a couple more. So depending on how chunky your onions are, will depend on how many you use. So you've got some quite chunky ones here, so we'll just use a couple more. Again, taking the roots off, peeling the outside layer off just so it's nice and clean. One, and pop them in the pan. Make sure you have all of that in as well. And last, spring onion before we move on to our courgettes. Beautiful. There we go. So we have all of our spring onions in the pan, and again making sure we continue to stir it. Awesome. So last but not least, we're going to add in our courgette, and then we're going to add in a little bit of seasoning. So with our courgettes, we want to take the top and the bottom off, so it looks kind of double-ended. We're going to cut it in half, or as in half as we can get it, and we're going to cut those halves into quarters, just so they can brown off a little bit more in the pan. Again, increasing that surface area, just so they don't go really mushy. So if we added them after we added the stock and the rice, they would go a little bit mushy and kind of lose their texture. But just by frying, it's going to increase that structural integrity and keep them, hopefully, keep them in more of one piece. So again, quartering this, got an extra little chunk bit there. And on the other end as well. Courgettes are never straight, so they're never going to be the easiest veggies to chop. Beautiful, getting them all in there. Fantastic. Awesome. So our courgette is quartered and chunked. Into the pan it goes, making sure we get all of it in the pan. And again, stirring it around. So we should have a beautifully nice soft onions, soft mushrooms, all the flavours coming out, mixing with that oil. So we're going to add a little bit of seasoning. So I have just got really simple. We're going to pop a little bit of salt in, just to bring the flavour out even more. A little bit of pepper. Again, it just adds this nice way to season a dish. You'll find salt and pepper in pretty much all of the cooking. We're going to add some mixed herbs. At the end, we're going to pop a bay leaf in, but just to kind of let it cook over. Some mixed herbs and just a touch of ground coriander. There, ground coriander. So again, just a little shake depending on how much you want the flavour to come out. But it is just really nice. If you have the fresh herbs, and we'll pop the fresh herbs in at the end, but it just does help to make it a little bit more fragrant as we go through. So, popping the rice in, I have got long grain arboreal rice. It's amazing, goes really soft, really puffy, really takes in moisture. So, we're going to add I said 300 or 350, but depending on how many people you're catering for, it's going to be somewhere between 300 and 350. So, taking the corner off, I'm going to pop in 300 just to start with on our scales. So hopefully this will have some leftovers in it as well. So that's that there. 300 grams of rice. And we're going to pop that in. And we're going to make sure it's all mixed in as well. So what we don't want to add it in and then add the stock in straight after. We want it just to get a little bit kind of glistening in the pan. So hopefully, I don't know how much you can see of the pan, but we're just going to mix it around. You might need to add a tiny bit more oil, but we're just going to add it just to see if the rice can take up any of the flavour. So getting it completely coated in our veggies, making sure we've not got a clump of rice anywhere and a clump of veggies anywhere else. So again, really trying to get it all spread around the pan. That's why I like using a really big pan as well. Makes it a lot easier. Awesome, so hopefully that's the rice starting to absorb that flavour that we've been cooking out of the veggies. Awesome, we might add a tiny bit more oil, again just to make it a little bit moister. So again, just a little bit of splash of oil. If it looks really dry, if it's not too bad, then absolutely no stress. But you'll start to see the rice kind of glisten a little bit, so hopefully, see if I can show you, it'll look a little bit like that. We're going to boil the kettle, so you're going to need about a litre or so if you're using 300 grams of rice. If you're using a little bit more, you'll need a little bit more. And I'm going to cheat, I'm going to put some stock cubes in it as well. It's just going to help enhance the flavour. So I've just got 2 of the jelly stock cubes, they're chicken ones. And we're going to make about a litre of stock. So we're going to pop the cubes into our dish as the kettle boils. And these are again just going to help enhance that flavour. So these are just the Knorr stock cubes. Amazing, they actually smell so good as they come out the packets. And then we're just going to stir. I'm going to use my butter spoon just because it's just got what we've been already putting into our dish and into our kettle. So we're going to make this up to 1 litre. The cubes will dissolve in our hot water, but just give it a little stir, just encouraging them to break up a little bit more. Nice and gently. Again as well, so as you're stirring the stock, you want to be stirring your rice as well. So what's really, really nice about this, this dish is very versatile all year round, but especially in the summer, because you're using seasonal veggies, and they're going to be more local, they're going to help the environment, they're going to help your stomach as well, because you're using local ingredients, they're not going to be flown, so it can be a little bit fresher hopefully, and they've not had to kind of travel everywhere, so you've still got as nutrient rich as the food's going to get, which again is absolutely fantastic for your systems if you're looking to increase that amount of nutrients that's in your diet. Eating seasonally is one of the best ways to do it as well. So it's really good looking at what's kind of in season at different times of the year. So especially kind of towards the end of the year, you're going to want a bit more casseroles, a little bit warmer, thicker soups and stuff. Whereas in the springtime, you want light, fresh foods. This as well, because it's a very high carbohydrate dish. It's great, so if you're at the end of a long day, if you've got a manual job, or if you've had a busy day, if you've been out walking, or if you've been, if you've had a busy day, it's a really good way of increasing those carbs in the evening as well, or if you've got a big day tomorrow. So it looks like our stock cubes are pretty much broken down into that. And what we want to do is we're going to add in the stock little by little. So we're going to pour in maybe a couple of 100 mils, and you'll hear the sound change a little bit. Pop that on the board. And you just want to stir it until it's absorbed, and then that's how we're going to add it in, little by little. So that's all absorbed in there. So again, making sure we don't miss any. There we go. Beautiful. So as we go through again, carrying on stirring our risotto while the rice kind of absorbs in that liquid, and it's going to get really thick and gloopy. Awesome. Maybe turn the heat up a little bit if it's not absorbing too much. But it is one of those patience dishes, so it is going to take a little bit of time just going through it. And while I'm stirring this in, I will talk to you a little bit more about serving options. So this dish is amazing just as it is on its own. You don't need to think about kind of too much with it. It is really nice adding a little salad in, so nice kind of spring salad. As I said, we're going to help balance out the colour. It's a very green risotto, so we're going to help balance it out a little bit with a nice red leaf salad, or if you want to just add a normal salad in, or just having it by itself is amazing as well. Once we've added all the stock in, we're going to leave it just to cook for a little bit longer until the rice is nice and soft. We always aim to eat at 6:30. It's nice to have a set meal time, so we're just going to leave it kind of sitting, doing its own thing, and then pop the heat on it at about 20 past 6. So once it's cooked, just to heat it up again, which would be quite nice. So you should still be able to smell all the flavours coming up out of the dish. Slowly stirring it, and again just letting it cook in its own time. Start to go nice and gloopy, and it'll be a nice kind of rich tan colour. This would be the time, well, just before you add the water, if you are so inclined to add a glass of white wine, if you have any, it can just again help to enhance that flavour as well. But it is not essential if you don't want to. If you don't have any lying around the house like we don't, then it's not essential. It will taste amazing as it is. So you should hopefully start to see it getting a little bit thicker. We've got a little bit more stock just to add in at the end. Again, stirring it around, really trying to encourage it to take in all of that moisture. Beautiful. So we shouldn't see any puddles. You just want to add it in nice and slowly. And then just to finish off with, we're going to pop a bay leaf on top. See if I can find them in the cupboard. And pop a lid on it just so it can allow the rice to finish cooking as well. So we're going to add in a little bit more. Just so it goes nice and soupy. So again, it should still be quite hot, the water, so it should hopefully absorb into our rice nice and quickly. Just give it a few minutes. So if you guys have any comments or any questions about this recipe, or if you have any requests for things for me to do in the future, I would love to hear from it. Similarly, if you guys are making this right now or in the future, please take a picture and share it with me. Share with me any of your serving ideas or suggestions as well. I would love to find out about it. Smells so good. So again, letting the rice really absorb in that water. We're going to add in the last of the stock. And give it one final stir. Hopefully then it, make sure we get all the onions and stuff off the spoon. We're going to add in a bay leaf, which is just going to cook in and again let out its flavour. So bay leaves, nice and simple. Pop them on top and we'll take them out before we eat. So we don't want to kind of have anybody having a bay leaf on their plate. It's going to be something we take out at the end. If you do have fresh herbs, you're going to want to add them in just before you serve them. Give them a nice mix in, just so they don't kind of break down and lose everything in them. And you still get the flavour when you come to eat them. I hope you've enjoyed this. I will share a picture with you, and I can't wait to hear and see what you guys have been doing in your kitchens. Have a great evening and a lovely weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye!